Why do you want to be Weld County Commissioner?
I want to start, and I just realized Tyler and I, for purpose of this audience, have seen each other for about 5 minutes now. I want to extend my condolences to you and to everybody here at the Tribune over the loss of Randy Banger. Randy was a spectacular man. I've worked, we're in common businesses. We're both in the media business, and I've known Randy for years. And what a loss to the community and a loss to the Tribune. So condolences to you and to the whole Tribune family here on Randy. So let's hope that our interview and our conversation today will do him justice and honor. Why do I want to be a member of the Weld County Board of County Commissioners? Because I believe that Weld County deserves an elected representative who is a servant first, who has the ability to put the needs of others ahead of themselves. I believe that the people of Weld County deserve somebody who is, like me, a pragmatic, consensus-building communicator. Somebody who has the ability to break complex issues down into bite-sized, digestible chunks that make them make sense not only to myself, but to the constituents. I believe that the people of Weld County deserve somebody who can have respectful debate over issues that they don't agree on, can be agreeable on issues that they do agree on, and can do so without belittling both their fellow board members and their constituents. I believe strongly in kindness and in a decorum that I think has escaped the Weld County Board of County Commissioners, and I believe I represent that. I believe that the people of Weld County deserve somebody who understands that both runaway bureaucracy and complete anarchy are not the way to go. They're both losing propositions. And I'm running because character matters, and principle matters, and integrity matters, and I believe that I bring that as well as a pragmatic, problem-solving, peacemaking attitude to the Weld County Board of County Commissioners. I believe, Tyler, that the skill set that I have been gifted is much needed and is for the here and now in Weld County.
We'll start with something a bit controversial. One of the more controversial aspects of a county commissioner's job involves making land use decisions.
Yes.
You've done a fair amount of that in Johnstown. What guides you in those decisions?
Well, first and foremost, in Johnstown, it's our code, it's our ordinances, it's that which is written into our home rule charter in the town of Johnstown. We must, to the letter of our code, follow that. After that, I believe in predictability and certainty. First and foremost in my decision-making process is private property rights. I believe that property is a right that is sanctimous. That is. I mean, that's what this nation is built on, is private property. And there is a right of usage, there is a right of that comes along with that property. And so therefore I will err on the right of the person who owns the property to do with it as they see fit within the confines of the code. Now, I believe that some of the problems that Weld County has gotten themselves into is over the subjectivity of a USR. Now, I'm not going to bang on the USR. I believe the USR is a needed mechanism in Weld County planning. And I believe that the USR makes sense in a lot of areas. But what makes sense in Northeast Weld may not make sense in the heart of District 2 where I live, in Southwest Weld. In Southwest Weld, it's becoming more integrated. It's becoming more. It's larger. It's just becoming more urban in nature, and therefore I think we need a more complex code to go along with that. I'm excited to see the Weld County Board of County Commissioners undertake a comprehensive plan review. I hope that they will consult the municipalities that are in Weld County on that plan review, and I hope that they will take a look at what the municipalities' comprehensive plans have and find ways that they can integrate elements into the new planning product. But land use, first and foremost, is guided by the right of the property owner, and it is then guided by your code. You must stick to it to the letter. When you get subjective, you get into trouble. And I believe there's a little too much subjectivity sometimes in that USR. At least that's what's happened in a couple of these instances. So what guides me? The sanctimony of the private property owner and the right that comes along with that property, and your code, your ordinance, your law by which you guide yourself.
A quick follow-up then. You talked about guiding yourself or using the code. Is land use code in Weld County clear enough?
The USR, again, can be subjective. I think when there are zoning overlays, it is clear enough. Now, I have not gone through it chapter and verse. I'm barely memorizing Johnstown. It's a complex thing. But I believe that business, that individuals, that property owners thrive on predictability and certainty. And as they go through this comprehensive plan review, as they take a harder look at the codes that guide their land use, they truly need to ask, is there room for subjectivity, or is there predictability and certainty? If there's predictability and certainty, you're going to win. If they're subjective, you're going to wind up in the courts. It just is.
And I'll ask your opponent the same question, although you did touch on this already, but maybe more specifically. Unlike in city councils or town councils, there are very few rezoning requests in the county, with companies instead opting for the use by special review process. How do you feel about the USR process? Is there anything you'd like to see changed with it?
Again, the USR is fine to use when you're pulling off a 40 off of a 160. When you're wanting to develop a horse training stable on the 60 acres that you own. The USR is fine in the more rural areas of Weld County. There's certainly a lot of them. But when you look at that, which I'm impacted by District 2, it's the fastest growing district in Weld County, and it's urbanizing. So far be it from me, a guy who is conservative by nature, to say that government needs a heavier hand, but I do believe that we need a more predictable hand. So I would like to see that USR used less, and I would like to see more of a municipal style planning program put into place, especially when it comes to a comprehensive plan. I think there's nothing wrong with getting together with the municipalities to seeing what they have planned and to filling in the spots in between, especially in District 2, and say, hey, it's reasonable to see agriculture continue here. It's reasonable to see industry might come here. It's reasonable to see commercial and retail might come here. You make that jive with the municipalities, and I believe you have a more predictable and certain nature. And so again, we go back to that predictability and certainty. USR is great, and it's incredibly flexible, but at the same time, is it sophisticated enough for the urbanization we see going on in District 2?
Definitely. And we'll get into partnerships in a little bit. I want to transition to transportation. Weld County has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on roads around the county, including, of course, Weld County Road 49. What do you think of those investments to date? And do you see other opportunities for investments in the county?
No, gosh, yeah. In Johnstown, I think, in fact, you've written a couple of stories on it. We have absolutely led the way when it comes to regional investment. And you take a look at things on a per capita basis for the citizens in Johnstown. Johnstown has arguably more skin in the game than any other municipality in northern Colorado. We believe in investment in transportation. I applaud Weld County on what they've done with Weld County Road 49. That is absolutely exciting. I applaud Weld County, and I'm proud to be a charter member of the Freedom Parkway, the corridor, that project. I think that shows real foresight on the part of all entities involved to say, hey, this is going to be another regionally significant corridor that we all need to work together on. I believe that Weld County needs to continue down that path to identify regionally significant corridors. I think 14 is certainly one of them. I think when you look at O Street and how that ties into Crossroads Boulevard as you get out into the west end of the county and into Larimer County. 402 and how that, the 402 1854 corridor, the Freedom Parkway corridor in my neck of the woods in District 2 is vitally important. We need to continue to identify those regionally significant corridors. We need to work with the municipalities that encompass those corridors, and we need to put together these broader-based, visionary kind of transportation things. And then we need to put a little skin in the game as far as the planning and the access control. It's all so important. I think the more that we can work on developing the significant east-west corridors while fortifying the north-south corridors that we have in Weld County, the better we're going to be. So cooperation with municipalities, and I go back to that. Of course, I'm a mayor, so I see things through that lens, but I believe it's important for the municipalities to cooperate with the county because, municipalities, we have our own transportation budgets. If we can team with the power of Weld County's budgets and maybe put those budgets together, we can accomplish a heck of a lot more. So again, I'm big on cooperation there.
Definitely. The Johnstown, you mentioned Colorado 402. Mm-hmm. So the Johnstown Town Council made headlines when it voted against paying for part of the Colorado 402 interchange. After the backlash, you and others changed your mind, and the council re-voted. Further, the recreation center, which the town is paying cash for, has been plagued by delays. Why should voters trust you to get things done and have the courage of your convictions as Weld County Commissioner?
You know, when we first started meeting on the 402 and 34 interchanges on that partnership that was being tried to put together there, I met with Commissioners Kozak, Commissioner Donnelly from Larimer County, with Dave Clark, who was a councilman in Loveland, and myself all got together on that, and we talked about how we were going to approach our council. Our council got a hold of it and got tied up in the per capita part of that. You know, they were asking us to put $6 million in the game. They were asking Loveland to put $6 million in the game. And our council kind of got lost in the weeds on, geez, let's look at per capita what that's worth. And we went down that path. And you know, what's interesting is, as a mayor, I sit there and I cannot put a privilege motion into play. And nor can I second a motion. So I watched my council on that evening. I watched a motion be put forward, it died due to lack of second. Another motion came forward, it died due to lack of second. And finally, I believe it was Councilor Mellon put $2 million skin in the game, and that passed. What's interesting is I was driving home that night, that meeting went late, and Council Member Young, Chad Young, called me and said, hey, we just made a mistake. And I said, you better believe we made a mistake. And so we went through the process that we had. We called a special meeting. We admitted that we made a mistake, and we corrected that mistake. I think, Tyler, when you look at the history of at least recent government, how many times do people go back and say, we flubbed that one, they reconvene and they make it right? So why should voters trust me? Because we have the ability to say, we made a mistake, we'll admit that mistake, we'll reconvene and we'll make it right. Cost delays in the recreation center, or not cost delays, but time delays in the recreation center, were simply built out of, let's find a piece of property and let's see if we can make it right. In the beginning, we thought that we had identified a location for that at the southeast corner of Colorado Boulevard and Highway 60. And come to find out, the people who were going to bring that Metro District to bring that development online, their timeline didn't match ours. They made some bigger promises than what they were ready to keep. So we had to go scrambling to find another site. We found another site. Problem was, it wasn't going to be deeded to us like the first site was. That site was going to cost us $1 million. But the site that we eventually chose, which is immediately across from Town Hall and across from the library, is the site that needed to be chosen. So why can you trust me? Because we slowed down and we did the absolute right thing. We didn't rush it just for the sake of rushing it. We made sure that we made the right decision, and I'm very confident that we made the right decision with the rec center.
You've spoken about this a couple times before, and certainly in public appearances. Weld County has long been criticized as not working well with others, and I'm not talking about the commissioners themselves. We'll get to that. What's your view of that, and are there specific things you'd like to do differently when it comes to partnerships with municipalities or other entities?
I think my record in Johnstown indicates that I am a cooperative regional guy. You know, my career since I came home to Colorado in the fall of 1990 and went to work in the broadcast business here, my career has stood for bringing Greeley and Fort Collins and Loveland and Windsor and Johnstown and Eaton and Wellington and the surrounding areas together. Northern Colorado is stronger. It's more economically significant. It is just a finer community to live in when we come together. And so I'm such a big believer in that cooperation, so to speak. And I know what my gifts are. I think we're all gifted from the good Lord above, and my gifts are our communication, our consensus building. My pastor even referred to me as a peacemaker, and you know what? I agree with him. You know me, I have a calming influence. I truly enjoy people. I like communicating with people, and I pragmatically find the center ground. I believe we can find agreement in almost every issue. And so Weld County has lived on an island. I'm not an island guy. Johnstown before me kind of lived on an island. I'm a big one, to use my strongest skill, that of communication, that of interaction, in reaching out with other municipalities, with other counties, and saying, let's find areas, let's get together for coffee, let's get together for lunch, and find areas that we can work together. That's probably what I look most forward to in serving on the Board of County Commissioners, is reaching out to Larimer County, to Logan County, to Adams County, to the surrounding counties, and reaching out to the municipalities within my jurisdiction and all of Weld County and saying, how can we work together? Because as colloquial as it may sound, we are truly stronger when we work together than when we work separately.
And just to follow up to that, you live right next door to a town that historically Johnstown and Milliken have had sort of a, a little, little brother, big brother, whatever you want to call it. There's, a little bit of maybe tension, but you and the Milliken mayor work well together?
No, Mayor Woodcock and I enjoy a great relationship. In fact, it's funny you mentioned it. I saw him this morning at a Johnstown Milliken Chamber event, and Mayor Woodcock and I could not be more different people. We are 180% diametrically opposed of each other as far as who we are. Maybe not so much ideologically, but certainly who we are. And I love Bo. And he and I get along exceptionally well because it's in both of our hearts to work for the benefit of our constituents. As long as we understand that, I want Milliken to be first, right behind Johnstown. But I am elected to represent the citizens of Johnstown. But there are ways that we can cooperate with Milliken to be a stronger Highway 60 corridor there, so to speak. It's so funny you mentioned that. When a lot of those little towns, it goes all the way back to the mid-'60s when they reorganized the school districts. Mm-hmm. For example, I grew up in LaSalle and went to Valley High School, which is Gilchrist, LaSalle, and Platteville. And back in the days, in the early 60s, LaSalle had a high school, Gilchrist had a high school, Platteville had a high school. And when you put them together, there was got to be a natural rivalry. Exactly what happened with Milliken High School and Johnstown High School when they came together to form Roosevelt, there was a little natural competition. And what's interesting is there are some people in Milliken who still are angry that Johnstown got the high school. And so it's just that stuff that goes back to the 60s. But the great thing is I have a wonderful relationship with not only Mayor Woodcock, but with their entire council there. And I know that in my remaining time as mayor, we'll continue to work together. And I very much look forward to reaching out to all the municipalities when I become a county commissioner to do just that, to foster that kind of cooperation.
Definitely. Probably a slightly more consequential tension is Weld County commissioners. Mm-hmm. Infighting there has been a part of this Board of County Commissioners for at least the past 3 years. What's the root cause, and how would it be different if you were elected?
I'm not privy to the exact root cause of what goes on between the five of them. I know they're strong personalities, as you often get with people that are quote-unquote politicians, that are public servants, that are elected officials. And there seems to be over the years a hardening and inability to reason with and work with one another. And again, I'm just an outsider looking in and reading what you write in the paper and talking to other people. I compare it a lot of times to baking a cookie. You can have perfectly good ingredients. You throw all the ingredients together, you bake it, and the cookie doesn't come out tasting so great. Sometimes the ingredients don't overly interact. I know all five of those commissioners. I've worked with them. I've enjoyed a great working relationship with all five of them. Why they don't necessarily see it eye to eye is beyond me. But what can I bring to that scenario? I can bring a fresh attitude, a fresh voice. And again, I hope that you, the kind viewer, gets to know me the way that Tyler has grown to know me, the way my constituents have grown to know me, and the fact that I come to things with an open heart, with a peacemaking attitude, a calming, light presence. If I can bring the bulk of who I am to that Weld County Board of County Commissioners, and it even brings the temperature down just a couple of degrees, well, that's a win. Now, I'm not so arrogant as to assume that my presence is going to change the relationships that have developed over years, but I can use a level head and a calm voice and say, let's act like reasoned individuals and remember that we are elected to represent constituents and not our egos.
Definitely. Weld County, like many government entities, uses tax dollars to pay for lobbyists to lobby our legislature. Do you agree with the practice? And if so, what should guide commissioners' decisions when it comes to spending taxpayer dollars on lobbying, deciding what to support, what not to support?
What is at the heart of their constituency? What's going to be best for the county? I mean, if we can spend money on a lobbyist to improve conditions for agriculture, for mineral, for extraction, to attract transportation dollars to Weld County to improve our roads and spur our economic activity along, then that's money well spent. And so first, Tyler, with me it's fairly simple. Everything begins and ends with the constituent. Will the constituents of Weld County benefit by us contracting with this lobbyist, by them getting a piece of legislation passed at the state capitol? If the answer is yes, then by all means do it.
First launched in the fall of 2015, the Weld County Bright Future Scholarship Program was billed as a way to give every Weld County High School graduate, GED recipient, and honorably discharged military veteran a chance at a college education. In the past 3 years, the program hasn't been able to keep pace with costs, and the county has had to infuse more cash into the program as donations lag. Is it time to fully dedicate county money to this program instead of continuing to hope donations fully fund it, or do you have a different solution?
You know, I've thought a lot about Bright Futures. I think Bright Futures is innovative. I think it's a great idea. But we have to go all the way back to our fundamental principle. You know, I go back, Tyler, to a fundamental principle of saying, is it the government's role to fund education? And that's a massive question and an unbelievably argumentative hotbed. I'm not going to argue that. It is what it is. We have created Bright Futures, and so now we have a responsibility to see it through. But I think we have a responsibility to see it through in an economically responsible way. I think with Bright Futures being put under the auspice of upstate Colorado, I think with it becoming more of kind of its own entity, that's a good thing. I think the restrictions that they put on Bright Futures is good. They took it from $3,000 to $2,000. They took the scholarships from being awarded to anywhere in the nation to Colorado and the surrounding states. I think those are good moves. I further personally would like to see a commitment to Weld County. I agree that this is a workforce initiative. And I think that is the shining example of, do we want to improve our workforce? Do we want to make our workforce incredibly attractive? Then we educate them, we equip them with the skills that they need. So I believe that we need to get people that can provide measurability to that outcome. If our outcome is a more educated, more capable, more diverse, more ready workforce, who can measure that? Now, whether that exists in upstate Colorado or whether there's some experts that we need to hire, then let's hire them. But let's hire the outcome and make sure that we are truly improving that workforce as we set out to do. I think public relations and marketing are a huge thing, and you know that's kind of my forte. That's what I've done for 36 years is communications, marketing, public relations. So I think that by my understanding in a recent survey, 30% of the people understood what Bright Futures was. Once they were kind of informed of what Bright Futures was, then all of a sudden it had a 70% likability factor. 70% of the people were for that. I think we need to continue to do education, marketing, community outreach, and inform people what Bright Futures is and how they can participate in it. We simply put, to make this thing economically viable, we need to go after more of the contribution dollars. We need people to understand that, you know, hey, the 15.8 mils on their property tax that go to Weld County, you can get a credit for that if you kick that over here to Bright Futures. We really need to strive to educate people on how positive that is for a workforce. So I believe what we've done is correct. We've limited the scope. I would like to see even one more restriction put on there, in the fact that it is good for people who are on the benefiting side of that to give back to their county. I know there's a public service hours requirement on that. I understand that's one of the biggest complaints about it is, well, geez, my kid's too busy to be able to volunteer. Well, that's fine. They don't need to take the money, quite frankly. I believe that you owe service, whether it's through community service hours or whether it's through, I'm going to commit to live and work in Weld County for 2 years after my education. So Weld County can reap the benefits of their investment, because if indeed it is a workforce program, if we're developing our workforce, then we, the taxpayers, deserve to see a return on our investment. So Bright Futures, good, especially in its scaled back version, but let's find ways that we can encourage investment and even encourage the people who are on the receiving ends of those educational dollars to put them back into Weld County in some way.
Well, cool. This might be slightly out of your district, but Gilcrest area farmers and residents have suffered for years the effects of decreased well pumping, with rising water levels destroying crops and inundating residents' basements. Costs have soared into the millions. Weld County Public Works did help with some ditch clearing a few years ago, Should the county do more?
I think the county should do more in a couple areas. I think there's some immediate infrastructure projects that the county can help on there, even with putting some financial skin in the game. And the Big Bend, the Big Bend drain that circles around that area up there, let's repair that immediately. There's an infrastructure that exists that's fallen into disrepair that can provide at least some relief. Then I think we can look at how we can get some sort of cooperative skin in the game as far as if we decide to drill some pumping wells, then let's see how we can help in that endeavor. But more than anything, I think what Weld County can do is continue to have strong representation on the South Platte Roundtable, because I believe the solution to that problem lies in that South Platte Roundtable. With all the different entities that are stakeholders in that scenario there, we need to find common ground. There's where I have a strong suit again. We need to find common ground. Let's find a way that we can put an end to that. I would like to see storage as a part of that, because some of this high groundwater, if we can just find ways to store some of that water and release it at the historical rate downstream there, and in the wet years continue to store some of that water, I think it's even. We can take a bad and turn it into a good there. As a side note, there's what happens. It's an unintended consequence of government slash legal of a legal decision. We go back to 06 when they decreed that, geez, we better stop pumping because the people downstream are being injured. Now, I believe in the right of those people downstream to get their water, but we shut all those wells down, and look what happens. Unintended consequence of government intervention. Bottom line is, let's provide the manpower that we can provide. Let's work on that Big Bend drain, and let's make sure that we continue to have very strong, very forward-thinking representation from Weld County on that South Platte Roundtable, because that's the organization that's going to fix the problem.
Last but not least,
yes,
and I appreciate you taking the time with us
pleasure. Today.
Is there anything you'd like to share with the voters you think they should know about you, or just a message you'd like to communicate?
I've always said I'm an unlikely politician as I've gotten into this game. People know, we do market research at my radio station, and I find that I'm a fairly well-known quantity in the marketplace, and that's great. Thank you for listening to me all these years. And I've enjoyed a wonderful career as a public servant, as a communicator in Northern Colorado. 28 years I've sat behind a microphone here, and I've had a ball. I've had a ball serving the people of Larimer and Weld counties. Public service truly is at my heart. I believe, and you're going to talk about a real personal expression here, I believe the good Lord equips us all with certain skills and abilities. Mine is, I'm a fairly pragmatic, fairly likable guy who has been gifted with a heart for public service. I truly do enjoy serving others. It's what's at my core. As colloquial, corny as it may sound, it's truly who I am, and I want you to know that about me. I get such a rush out of helping others. I literally fell into government. I've always been a leader. I've been a leader my entire life. I've been a leader from the time that I pulled wagon trains when I was 6 years old into being a senior patrol leader and a patrol leader in the Boy Scouts, to being a state FFA officer, to going on and being an operations manager and a program director in my career. I have always been a leader, but I never overly envisioned myself being a politician, so to speak. I saw myself as a community leader, but not necessarily a politician. And when a couple of things went sideways in my development, when my wife and I moved to Johnstown 20 years ago, I went and I complained, so to speak, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the fellow walks up afterwards and say, "Hey, you're a fairly well-spoken guy, and we have an opening." Oh. Don't gripe unless you're willing to do something about it. So I decided to do something about it and serve as Planning and Zoning Commissioner. I did that for 3 years, found I loved it, found I had a knack for it, found that the skills that the good Lord gave me matched that job. In 2002, I went on to run for, at that time, a Board of Trustees seat in the town of Johnstown. I was elected in 2002. I was elected to the town council in 2006, again in 2010, again in 2014. I was elected to the mayor position in 2016. And I have found that my God-given gifts match up with public service, elected public service, exactly. So I want people to know that I'm a fairly simple guy. I enjoy serving them. I'm a communicator with a servant's heart. I'm a pragmatic, principled individual. I believe in integrity. I believe in character. I believe in principles. And I believe in their application in government. And I still do believe that honest people can thrive as elected officials. And if anything, that's what my campaign stands for, is can a regular, honest, Weld County guy go on to be an elected official and help guide the county that gave so much to them. I mean, Weld County made me who I am today. I want to give back to that. When I take a look at what we've done in Johnstown, it's fairly simple. Our principles indicated that we were going to be constituent focused. Our principles indicated that we were going to be debt free. When I was first elected to the Board of Trustees in the town of Johnstown, we had about $9 million in reserves and $13 million in debt. Today we have $81 million in reserves and absolutely no debt. We needed a brand new library. We built it, we paid cash. We needed a police station. We built it, and we paid cash. We needed a public works building. We built it, we paid cash. We needed a town hall. We built it, and we paid cash. We need this rec center. We're building it, and we were paying cash. I run a government, and by the way, when a politician talks about how fiscally responsible they are, look no further than the last public budget they managed. I implore you to look at the public budget that I currently manage, and you will see that I truly am fiscally responsible. And I want to take the very principles that I use to run my family and use it to run a county, because, Tyler, I believe it works. So whether I'm an anomaly, whether I'm an interesting guy, I don't know. That's what the kind of voter, that's what you are going to decide, is can you elect a principled, regular Weld County guy to a leadership position and have them thrive? And my answer is yes, I believe you can, and that's why I'm here.